Hi, before I begin, I have to tell you that winning the Humanitas Prize was a real thrill for me, but it was an even bigger thrill for somebody else. My aunt, the nun. Sister Carol Hoverman from Dubuque, Iowa. Now, I knew Sister Carol was excited because in her congratulatory email to me, she used a lot of exclamation points. Congratulations, Matt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow. As you can tell, Sissy, as we call her, has a wild side. I know because as a kid, when we visited Iowa, my parents stayed with our grandparents in their very small house while we kids spent the night with the nuns in the convent. After dinner and prayers, the nuns would let down their wimples, and we'd all binge on root beer floats and stay up way past midnight playing Triominoes or Connect Four or whatever Milton Bradley game the sisters were obsessed with that year. Then we'd all stumble off happily to sleep, each to our own individual cells. Those were some crazy nights. But here's the reason Sissy was so excited I won. For 34 years, she was the Dubuque Archdiocese Communications Director, which meant that every Sunday night at 10:30, she programmed Father Bud Kaiser's Insight series on the local television station. So there's no point to any of that except that Sister Carol thinks you guys are really cool. I also think you're really cool, and here's why. When I was growing up, other than those wild nun sleepovers, you know what happens in a Dubuque convent stays in a Dubuque convent, I was a pretty lonely child. Unlike all the other writers here, when I turned 5, my dad got a promotion and we moved. I missed my old friends, but there was no one to talk to about it. Mom was depressed and Dad traveled for work and he wasn't exactly a listener. So in that vacuum, I did what any sensitive 5-year-old boy would do. I put my little record player in my bedroom window and I played music for the robins on the lawn to cheer them up. I have since learned that 5 is a really important age for boys. Up until that time, they're just as emotionally in touch as girls, sometimes even more so. But mid-kindergarten, studies show that many boys start shutting down. It can seem biological, boys are different than girls, but from what I've read, the culprit is often that no one is treating a boy like he has an inner emotional life. And when nobody speaks to the richness and variety in a boy's heart, he forgets he has a heart at all. Boys harden and posture. They become men without empathy. They become Republicans. Now this, yeah, all right, it's true. This could have happened to me at 5, but it didn't, and I'll tell you why. We owned a record album, Free to Be You and Me by Marlo Thomas and Friends. If you're not familiar with it, Free to Be was an album of songs and skits performed by celebrities. The basic concept was to encourage post-1960s gender neutrality. In other words, girls could be engineers and astronauts, and boys could have a freaking feeling. It was released in November of 1972 when I was 4.5 years old. I listened to it over and over and over and over and over again. My favorite songs were Rosie Greer, the big tough football player, singing, "It's all right to cry. Crying gets the sad out of you." And Alan Alda singing William's Doll about a little boy who was made fun of by his friends and family because he just wants to have a doll. But luckily in the end, he's saved by his grandmother who explains, William wants a doll. So when he has a baby someday, he'll know how to dress it, put diapers on double, and gently caress it to bring up a bubble. William has a doll because someday he is going to be a father too. It still makes me cry when I sing them. And thank God I can cry. Thank Marlo Thomas. To me, those songs and stories were a lifeline. They let me know that what I was feeling was real, that I wasn't a freak or wrong or a sissy for embracing what was inside of me. Just as importantly, they let me know that I wasn't alone. that if I stuck it out, there were people out there who would resonate with how I felt, who I was, and with what made my heart sing. I tell you this story to demonstrate the power of media in a child's life. In 2011, I fell into writing for children myself, just by accident. I was a playwright in New York, walking down the street, and I ran into an old friend who asked me, "How's it going?" And I said, "Fantastic. One of my plays just got optioned for Broadway, so now that a producer has taken over my career, everything's going to work out perfectly." He nodded wisely and suggested I write for a cartoon he was story editing for PBS. It's called Arthur, about the trials and tribulations of a young aardvark and his friends. He is an aardvark, he has no nose, but he's an aardvark. I was eager for the TV experience, but felt a little afraid. I mean, what did I have to say to that audience? 5-year-olds. It turns out, 6 years later, a lot. My own childhood showed me that what children's TV writers are doing is vitally important, or can be. All TV shapes our culture and beliefs and opinions, but when you're speaking to kids at 5, they're open in a completely different way. Still, when I won an Emmy for writing Arthur, my big fancy agents dropped me, saying, "Hey, congrats, man, but kids' TV doesn't count." I was like, "I hear you, but if you feel that way, maybe you shouldn't put your children in front of it for hours." What we do is more than babysitting or selling lunchboxes. We are welcoming kids into the world, our world. We are letting them know their feelings matter, their ideas and questions and fears and triumphs have meaning. We are giving them real human tools. For some, it's reinforcing what they're getting at home, but for others, we're pretty much it. For all, I hope we're letting them know that there are caring adults out there, a rich, vibrant community that they can join if they hold on. At least that's what I aim for. Every time I begin a new episode, I ask myself, what kid needs to hear this story? And I don't mean what is the vocabulary lesson or the STEM lesson or the educational objective or the social takeaway. I mean something real. I'll give you an example, and then I'll be done. A few years ago, I joined the staff of Disney's Sophia the First. I was prepping by reading about it, and I discovered that there wasn't yet a disabled Disney princess. Now, my sister is developmentally disabled, and I knew from her experience what a tough time she had making friends, because other kids usually just found her strange and different. Because of that, I try to introduce storylines into every series I work on where there's a disabled character who is just part of the gang, and it's more fun than you might expect at first. So I decided I was going to create Disney's first disabled princess. Throughout the season, I pitched and pitched ideas, but none of them got through. Finally, a friend took me aside and said, "Matt, that show is about wish fulfillment, and no little girl wishes to be disabled." Yeah, I thought, but aren't there plenty of disabled girls who wish to be princesses? It was a discouraging moment. I started to think, why am I trying so hard? Who really cares? We are glorified babysitters. Kids' TV doesn't count. It was at this exact moment that I got the call that I had won the Humanitas Prize for children's animation. You all lifted me up when I needed it. I'm not kidding. Winning the award validated the path I was walking, and it introduced me to a group of people who resonated with what I was trying to do. In you, I found the community that had long ago been promised, listening to Marlo Thomas and friends. So I kept trying, and on my very last script for the show, thanks in part to the intervention of our show's creator, Craig Gerber, who unbeknownst to me, had also long dreamed of a disabled princess, my idea got approved. In a few months, Sophia the First will premiere an episode introducing Princess Cassandra. She's kind of a female, royal, blind Indiana Jones. She leads Sophia and her friends on a harrowing journey into a lost pyramid, where she saves the day using her skill with Braille to read the raised ancient carvings on the pyramid walls. And she teaches Sophia to tune into her other senses when the lights go out and the angry gods that were buried in the temple come back to life. I hope somewhere a differently abled girl or boy who dreams of being a princess watches that episode and feels seen and heard and believed. I hope they feel welcomed. We have to keep pushing for more. By reading scripts and giving out these awards and celebrating the efforts of writers who push, you are an indispensable part of that mission. Thank you. I wrote that with 5 exclamation points.